I got to see Primetime at Sundance earlier this year, and now it comes to Netflix under their banner. Should this thriller be on your watch list? On New Year's Eve 1999, an armed man enters a TV studio during a broadcast, takes the host hostage, and makes one demand: to give a message live on air. Now, this has a similar premise to Jodie Foster's 2016 Money Monster, where a young man takes over a TV studio and holds the host hostage. But the motivations in this may not be exactly the same as Primetime. I like that this is pretty much a single location setting, which is a television studio in Poland on New Year's Eve of 1999. Our antagonist, if we can call him that, is Sebastian. He's the young man who takes over the studio to give his message, and I love that he is not dumb. He's got his wits about him, so inevitably when negotiators arrive and they try and trip him up, he doesn't fall for it. This makes their back and forth so much more anxiety-ridden. The director said they decided to shoot this guerrilla style, which means that the camera is handheld for much of it and at times can be shaky. But that also means we get both close and intimate shots as well as the more voyeuristic shots. Mira is the TV presenter, and while she's probably supposed to be a bit sympathetic, she comes across more self-absorbed and arrogant, which in turn makes Sebastian a little more likable. Because of the setting for this, the majority of the tension and drama comes from the dialogue. The writing is effective at drawing us in, especially because we know that Sebastian has something he wants to say, but those around him aren't providing him the avenue to do so. When authorities are inevitably called in, the negotiations get tense. They also take a very emotional turn when a certain person shows up, and when this happens, the dialogue becomes devastatingly cruel. And what we learn pretty early on, and can see rather easily, is that Sebastian is a hurting young man. He has something pressing that he needs to address, and he comes across as lonely, searching, hurting, and maybe even confused, with no real outlet or solution to get help. The political landscape and how the television station functions are really interesting to watch too. There are a lot of layers of bureaucracy to go through to make certain things happen, which only work to add to the frustrating urgency of the story. The exchanges between Sebastian and all the other participants are at times nerve-wracking, and others just mildly interesting. The whole story only takes an hour and a half to tell, and while I was into most of it, especially because I was really invested in finding out what was so stinking important for Sebastian to say on national television, the ending is probably going to disappoint you. I was disappointed by the ending. The entire impetus for the takeover, this all-important message that at times leads to violence, is... What, you thought I was going to tell you what the actual message was? Ultimately, he's lied to and shut down every step of the way, which does contrast nicely with the Polish president's broadcasted message to be more neighborly to each other, to have hope for the future. But Sebastian's without hope. He obviously had an important message to say, and one that he was willing to risk everything for. And that drew me in, and it made me crave hearing it. Now, I still really enjoyed the performances and loved a lot of the dialogue. I think the story is compelling and engaging, but falls apart at the end, leaving us wanting. There's no sex or nudity, lots of profanity, and some violence. I give Primetime 3 out of 5 couches. So are there any good tense thrillers you've seen recently? Let me know what you're watching in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.